Hi, my name is Elena. I'm 25 years old, and for most of my life I've lived with a strange, uncomfortable truth. I wasn't really part of my family. Not fully, not in the way my younger sister Chloe was. Let me take you back. Chloe was born 5 years after me, premature, fragile, a little bundle of worry and hope that my parents clung to like a second chance at happiness. She was their miracle girl, their survivor, the baby who almost didn't make it. And so, in their eyes, everything she did, from breathing to blinking, was extraordinary. And me? Well, I was the strong one, the one who should understand, who could manage on her own. I was straightforward, no nonsense, always trying to do the right thing. And that, in my household, meant I became invisible. At first it was subtle. Chloe got more hugs, more praise, more attention. That's normal, I told myself. She's younger. She's been through a lot. But as the years rolled on, it became something else. Something sharper. Chloe had this knack, a talent really. She knew how to twist reality. At age 7, she deliberately scratched through the centerpiece photo in my family album, me smiling in a princess costume at a school recital, and blamed the cat. I remember crying over it, not just because the picture was ruined, but because I knew it wasn't the cat, and I knew she knew what she was doing. When I confronted her later, she smirked, "Oops." Another time, when I was prepping for a life-changing scholarship interview, something I'd worked on for months, Chloe accidentally spilled a whole mug of coffee over my portfolio. My parents chalked it up to clumsiness. She batted her eyes and offered this syrupy apology that made me want to scream. But every time I tried to speak up, I was met with the same weary sighs. "Elena, must you always be so dramatic? Chloe's just being playful. You take things too seriously." So I did what many overlooked kids do. I buried my anger and worked harder. I got straight A's, earned a scholarship, and when I turned 18, I left, not with bitterness, just with quiet relief. University was freedom. For the first time, I could breathe. I stayed in the dorms during the holidays, took internships in faraway cities, spent Thanksgiving with my roommate's family, and when my parents called to ask why I wasn't coming home, I'd just smile and say, "I've got work." They thought I was ambitious. What they didn't realize was that I was simply choosing peace. Meanwhile, Chloe didn't go to college. She stayed home, glued to her phone, chasing TikTok trends and calling herself an influencer. My parents supported her every whim, bought her ring lights, upgraded her phone, paid her bills. They never pressured her the way they had me. Instead, they praised her creativity, her unique path. And yet, every time I came home, even for a day, it was war by whispers. She would borrow my clothes without asking, then lose them. She would corner my old friends during gatherings and casually drop lies. "Did you know Elena cheated on her high school boyfriend? Or she only got that job because her professor felt sorry for her?" It was always delivered with that sweet, innocent tone that made everyone believe her. I didn't argue. What was the point? My parents kept asking us to just be civil during the holidays, and I kept finding reasons to be away. In their eyes, I was busy living a productive, successful life. In reality, I was building a wall, brick by brick. Then, last year, I moved to Seattle for a job at a tech firm, full-time. My own apartment, clean slate. I barely spoke to my family, unless it was a birthday or a hospital update. I figured I'd made my peace, that the chapter was closed. But life, as it tends to, had other plans. A few months ago, my dad had a stroke. Sudden, severe. He survived, but barely. Speech slurred. One side of his body paralyzed. It shattered my mother. Chloe was Chloe, posting crying selfies and dramatic TikToks. I took emergency leave and flew home. The house felt smaller than I remembered, dimmer. My parents looked years older, the stress etched into their faces, their movements sluggish and uncertain. Dad couldn't speak much, but he squeezed my hand when he saw me, and for a moment, I felt something crack in my chest. Mom, desperate for normalcy, proposed a quiet family retreat, a cabin in the mountains. "He needs fresh air, peace, just us." I agreed. "Chloe?" Of course, she said yes, if she could bring her camera gear and do content. And that brings us to the morning of the trip. 2 cars, 2 sisters, one silent battle. My parents were already packed in their SUV, waiting impatiently. I couldn't find my keys. Searched the entire house. My room, the hallway, the kitchen. Gone. Then I saw Chloe, leaning against the doorway, arms crossed. That same unreadable expression, the same one she wore all those years ago, after scratching my photo. "You lose everything," she said flatly. I snapped. "Where are they?" Before she could answer, my mom intervened. "Elena, enough. We don't have time for this." Dad, in the passenger seat, stared blankly ahead. Take the bus or catch up later. Mom added, already shutting the car door. And just like that, they left. Again, left me behind. Left me with the familiar sting of being the forgotten one. But this time, it wouldn't end the same. I ended up renting a car. A 4-hour drive through winding roads, steep cliffs, and spotty cell service. When I finally reached the cabin, the sun had already dipped behind the pines, and the air held that sharp mountain chill that settles in your bones. They barely acknowledged my arrival. Chloe was sprawled on the couch, glued to her phone. Mom was in the kitchen, reheating soup. Dad was in the back bedroom, resting, pale and motionless. The silence in the house wasn't peaceful. It was taut, heavy, like something was waiting to snap. For the next few days, I tried to be helpful. I cooked. I cleaned. I read to Dad. Chloe did whatever Chloe does. Filmed herself walking through the forest in dramatic slow motion. Took selfies with Dad while he was sleeping. Left ring lights and chargers scattered like breadcrumbs through the cabin. And then came the third night. I woke up to yelling. Mom's voice, panicked. Where are they? Where are they? I rushed out, heart pounding. Dad was groaning in the recliner, clutching his side. His pain meds were missing. All of them. A full bottle. Gone. My mom was in full meltdown. He needs those. I gave him his last dose this morning. He's in agony. I immediately checked every drawer, every shelf. Nothing. And then, on a hunch, I went to Chloe's day bag, the oversized faux leather tote she never let out of her sight. Buried beneath makeup kits, charger cords, and a half-eaten protein bar was the pill bottle. Full. Untouched. I held it in my hand and stared. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't an accident. This was deliberate. I turned to Chloe, who stood in the doorway, eyes wide but not surprised. What is wrong with you? I whispered. She didn't answer. When my mother saw the pills, her knees buckled. Chloe, why? And that's when Chloe snapped. She screamed, loud, ugly. A guttural sound that shook the wooden beams of the cabin. You're all obsessed with her, she shrieked, pointing at me. She always ruins everything. She's always been trying to take you away from me. She lunged forward, shoved Mom so hard she stumbled into the counter. Then she grabbed a heavy ceramic mug and hurled it across the room. It missed Dad's head by inches. Everything happened so fast after that. A neighbor, probably alerted by the screaming, called the ranger station. Minutes later, headlights appeared outside. 2 officers stepped in, calm but firm. Chloe was still ranting, but when they tried to approach her, she fought back, kicking, clawing, sobbing. They arrested her on the spot. The silence that followed felt surreal. Like we were floating inside a glass bubble, shattered by impact, and all we could hear was the ringing in our ears. My parents were in shock. Mom, trembling, confessed she didn't know who Chloe was anymore. Dad just looked at me, eyes glassy. There was no strength in his voice, but his hand reached out to mine and held. For the first time in years, I felt something real in that grasp. A silent apology. A surrender. The next morning was chaos. Phone's dead. Chloe had taken all the chargers. The spare car keys, gone. We found them 3 days later, tossed into a thicket of blackberry bushes near the cabin, probably hurled in some fit of rage. We were stranded. It was Mom who called me from a borrowed landline at the park's main office, her voice hoarse and broken. Elena, we need help. I didn't hesitate. I guided her through contacting local authorities, found a medical team nearby to check on Dad, and arranged transportation back to town. I stayed calm, collected, efficient. Because someone had to be. And slowly, minute by minute, I could feel something changing in her voice. Guilt, shame, and something that sounded like clarity. We've been so blind, Elena, she said quietly. That night, back in their house, you were right all along. I didn't answer. Because I didn't know how to say. I'd been waiting my whole life to hear that. In the days that followed, the dam truly broke. Chloe, out on bail, was livid. Accused them of betrayal, said she would tell everyone in town they abandoned her. She carved threats into the wooden banister, spray-painted obscenities on the basement wall. Then she maxed out their credit cards, ordering expensive skincare products and junk she didn't need. It all came to a head one rainy afternoon. Mom confronted her about the charges. Chloe lost it. She grabbed a framed photo off the wall, an old family portrait, ironically, and swung it. It hit Mom's shoulder with a sickening crack. This time there were no second chances. Dad, with trembling fingers, dialed 911. She was arrested again, this time for aggravated assault. And finally, my parents saw the truth in full, agonizing detail. The therapist they consulted afterward didn't mince words. This isn't just teenage rebellion. This is pathology. The recommendation? Eviction. Boundaries. Legal action. So they filed and served her. It shattered them, but also freed them. As they sat in their quiet living room, blinds drawn, my mom whispered, "We kept waiting for her to grow out of it, but she didn't. And we let it get this far. We let it destroy you too." I didn't know what to say. So I just told them the truth. "I wanted you to see me, that's all." And for the first time they did. After the second arrest, the tone of everything shifted. My parents, who once bent over backward to excuse, justify, and shield Chloe, were suddenly exhausted in a way I'd never seen before. Their energy, their optimism, their blind hope, it had been wrung dry. When they bailed her out this time, it was only so they could serve her the eviction papers in person. That night, Chloe screamed until her voice cracked. "You're disgusting. You're throwing your own daughter out on the street? You think this makes you good people? Everyone will know what you did." She hurled objects down the stairs, kicked in her own bedroom door, and disappeared for hours before showing up again at 3 a.m., blasting music from her phone, demanding her parents pay for her therapy since they ruined her life. It was chaos. She spent the next week trying to push every button she could, ordering more items with their credit cards, trashing the house, pouring soda into the HVAC vents. One night she even left the gas stove running and went to take a walk. When confronted, she just smiled. There was no remorse, just a black hole where empathy should have been. The final straw came on a Tuesday morning. During what was supposed to be a quiet conversation about logistics, Chloe was in a foul mood, accusing Mom of conspiring with Elena, and when Dad tried to intervene, she snapped, "You're just a cripple now. What are you going to do? Crawl after me?" That's when Mom stood up, fully, for the first time in years. "No more," she said. "This is over." Chloe laughed in her face. So they called the attorney, filed the lawsuit, and followed through. They won. The court sided with them, granted a permanent eviction order. Chloe had 72 hours to vacate or face forced removal. It felt unreal. The child they once sheltered, the girl who could do no wrong in their eyes, now faced legal separation from the very people who had enabled her. But there was no celebration, only silence. After Chloe finally left, after the last of her trash bags and broken ring lights were dragged out, the house felt haunted. Every room echoed with something unspoken: shame, regret, grief. They didn't want to stay there anymore. So I did something I hadn't done in over a decade. I invited them into my home. When they arrived in Seattle, they looked like shadows of themselves. Mom clutched a small suitcase like it might vanish if she let go. Dad moved slowly, with a shuffle step that made my heart ache. But what hit me the hardest was their silence. They weren't chatty. They weren't hopeful. They were wrecked. We spent the first few days in awkward coexistence, me working quietly from the dining table, Mom folding laundry compulsively, Dad watching the same news loop 3 times a day. Then one night, over takeout Thai and an old movie playing in the background, Mom finally spoke. "We owe you an apology, Elena." She didn't sugarcoat it. She didn't defend herself. She didn't cry. Just looked at me with a hollow honesty I'd waited my entire life to hear. "We thought we were protecting her, that if we just gave her enough love, she would stop hurting, but she didn't stop hurting. She just learned how to hurt others without consequence." Dad added slowly, "And we let her hurt you." I listened. Let the silence do its work. Then I told them everything. Not in anger, not in accusation, just the truth. I told them how I used to pray at night that they'd see the scratch Chloe made in that photo, and finally believe me, how I cried in the bathroom during my scholarship interview, blotting coffee stains from my portfolio while they laughed with Chloe in the lobby. How it felt to be told, again and again, that I was too sensitive when I was simply being honest. How I spent years trying to earn affection that was given freely to someone who weaponized it. Mom wept. Dad did too. They both apologized. Not in vague sweeping statements, but in specifics. "We called you dramatic," Mom said. "We made you question your own reality." They admitted they chose comfort over truth, peace over justice, hope over action. It was the most painful conversation I've ever had, but also the most healing. Because for the first time, I wasn't just the strong one who managed alone. I was seen, heard, believed. In the weeks that followed, things changed. We ate dinner together, took slow walks by the water, talked about therapy, individual and family. They started the process. We even laugh sometimes, tentatively, like people learning a new language. As for Chloe, she's facing court-mandated psychological evaluation as part of her assault charges. There's talk of inpatient treatment, though it's not guaranteed. Mom and Dad still feel a sense of responsibility, but they're learning what boundaries look like. They know that for now and maybe forever, contact with Chloe needs to be guided by professionals. Well, never stop loving her, Dad said one evening, but love doesn't mean enabling. And I agree. Love isn't blind. Love is accountability. Love is change. And for the first time in my life, I think we might actually have a chance at healing. It's been 6 months since everything fell apart. 6 months since Chloe was arrested, since my parents were forced to confront the child they raised and the daughter they neglected. Since I stepped back into their lives, not as the overlooked one, not as the peacekeeper, but as someone with boundaries, history, and her own voice. A lot has changed. My parents now rent a small apartment in Seattle, just a few blocks from mine. Nothing fancy. 2 bedrooms, no frills, but it's safe, quiet, and theirs. No broken locks, no threats etched into the walls, no missing keys, no walking on eggshells. Just space. And slowly, they're learning what to do with it. My dad's made progress in physical therapy. He still walks with a cane, but his speech has improved. He's reading again slowly, yes, but he likes to underline passages in library books and leave sticky notes with quotes that moved him, like he's reassembling the pieces of himself. My mom? She's harder to read. Her guilt lingers like morning fog. She tries to hide it with busyness, volunteering at the local co-op, attending grief support groups, organizing their cupboards like it's therapy. But every now and then, when we are cooking or folding laundry, she will stop mid-motion and whisper something like, "I still don't know how we missed it," or worse, "What if we created it?" I never pretend to have the answers, because I don't. Some questions just don't have satisfying resolutions. But I've told her what I believe, that acknowledging harm doesn't erase love. That facing the truth isn't betrayal, it's devotion in its truest form. And that healing doesn't mean everything goes back to how it was. It means choosing to move forward together even if it hurts. As for Chloe, we haven't heard from her directly. Not since the court-mandated psychological evaluation confirmed what many of us suspected, that she wasn't just troubled or spoiled or acting out. She needed help. Real, structured, clinical help. There are rumors. She's couch surfing. She tried to start another influencer account under a different name. She posted a long, ranting story claiming she was the victim and that our family had discarded her. I didn't watch it. Neither did my parents. There's no malice in our silence, just necessity. We've all come to understand that contact, if it ever happens again, can't be on Trez's terms. Not until she seeks help. Not until she takes accountability. Not until she shows signs of wanting to heal too. Love without boundaries isn't love. It's self-erasure. And we've all erased enough of ourselves already. A few weeks ago we had dinner together, just the 3 of us, in my apartment. It wasn't a special occasion, no holiday, no milestone, just a shared craving for pasta and a need to be close. After dessert, Dad asked me to pull out my old photo albums, the ones I used to guard like sacred texts, the ones Chloe had torn through with a careless swipe of a finger and a convenient lie about the cat. I hesitated, but then I brought them out. Page by page, we turned through my childhood. Kindergarten drawings, science fair ribbons, prom pictures where I wore too much eyeliner and not enough confidence. And then we reached it. The scratched photo. Me in a princess dress, arms wide open, a gap-toothed smile frozen in time, a jagged scar running diagonally across my cheek, carefully made, deliberately placed. Mom traced the scratch with her thumb. Her lip trembled. "I remember blaming the cat," she whispered. Dad shook his head. "We really believed it, didn't we?" I looked at them. These people who raised me, failed me, and were now sitting in my living room trying to make amends not with words but with presence. "You believed what you needed to," I said gently, "that she was innocent, that I was resilient, that love alone could fix anything." They nodded. Not in defense. In agreement. Then Mom leaned over, kissed the corner of the photo, and said, "I'm so sorry. We are still figuring out what comes next." Family counseling is on the calendar. We go twice a month, sometimes all 3 of us, sometimes just my parents. It's slow work, messy, but necessary. We are learning to speak a new language. One where truth isn't punished, where vulnerability isn't weakness, where forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, it means choosing connection over closure. And I've learned something too, that it's possible to grieve someone who's still alive. That it's okay to feel anger and love in the same breath. That you can both protect your peace and hold space for another's pain without being consumed by it. Sometimes I still hear Chloe's voice in my head, sneering, mocking, that saccharine tone she used to wear like perfume. I don't hate her, but I don't miss her either. What I miss is the idea of a sister, the fantasy version, the one who might have stood beside me at graduation, who might have texted me late at night with dumb memes and even dumber advice, but that sister never existed, and I've stopped waiting for her to appear. Instead, I'm building a new kind of family. It includes my parents, flawed, grieving, trying. It includes chosen friends who show up without being asked. It includes me, finally, wholly, unapologetically me. The strong one, the forgotten one, the survivor, the truth teller. And after all these years, I'm not just standing alone anymore. I'm being met halfway. And that's enough.